All right, let's talk about this mixer. So I want you guys to revise your mixer. I've got a student example here, and they did a pretty good job based on what you guys know right now. I just wanted to round some things out here and get this into a better place as a model and fill in some of the principles here that we need to make this better. Cool. So first things first. We need to round the edges of all the parts so that when there's light in here, it starts catching the corner and looking better. And we'll set some stuff up here so it looks better. But why do we need to round the corners? Let's look here. I set up this. I've got one with rounded corners here, one without. And if I were to move the slider, if I turn this, let's move this one. As I move the light around, you see that it's being caught on the corners here of the rounded objects, and over here it's not. And so this is the first ingredient of creating something that looks believable. Not necessarily realistic, but not old, right? This is that low poly look, which is like a legitimate artistic idea. But when we're learning to do this, we want to learn better best case scenarios where, you know, part of this is a look is because it's retro. Part of the reason it's retro is because this is all the computer was capable of for a while. But now we're capable of having rounded corners. And so we need to get that in our wheelhouse first before we start intentionally producing, you know, retro looks like pixel art or low poly or stuff like that. And so this needs to have rounded corners. And if we hit shortcut NB to look at the corners, you see that it's subdivided. Anytime you have round corners, it needs to be subdivided. And so one polygon cannot be bent, one polygon cannot be bent, one polygon cannot be bent. We need to subdivide in order to create smooth corners. So let's talk about how to do this over here. We'll look in it with different objects. And so for instance, this part here, pretty good job labeling things. The first thing, as we're doing this, anchor points, anchor points, anchor points. We need to get the anchor points figured out so that this works a little bit better. And so let's get this here. And so for this object, you want your anchor points for the whole thing to be right and your anchor points for each individual object. And so for instance, this one, this we'll call this the base. This is the let's say stand. And that's good. Labeling. There shouldn't be anything up here labeled lathe or extrude. And so here, all right, Mark's got separate holes for each of these in this object. And this looks pretty good, but we want to take a different approach to this. And so for instance, all of these holes for the splines right here, 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 these could all be combined. There's a couple different ways to combine them. I'm going to go ahead and combine them. Let's go ahead and get all of them and put them into one spline. And so a spline doesn't need to be contiguous. It can be separate shapes. And so I'm just going to grab this and Control C, Control V. There's all the splines there. And if I'm going to hit C to convert them all into you know, editable splines, and then right click and connect objects and delete. And now they're all one spline. There we go. And so let's delete that. So now with the neck, you have your neck shape here. You go ahead and Control C, Control V that. And yeah, there we go. Let's get these sorted out on the same plane. So on the X here, let's put them at 0 and work from there. And put this one at 0. And these two objects, I'm going to use the Spline Mask here and here. And we're going to use this Spline Mask in Tract A. And then we're going to put this third. All right, so let's go ahead and delete our old stand. See what we get. Go. Let's look at the spline mask real quick without that. We have the subtraction back. We got that part and this part. Put them into the spline mask for combining splines. Union. There we go. So union mode. Cool. So when I'm making splines like this, I've got the splines themselves at x equals 0, which is the axis I care about right now. That way when I extrude it, I can extrude some sort of sensible amount, less than that. And now, I just want to deal with the extrude from this point on. And so we could move the anchor point, or if we grab the extrude here, there's another, we're going to go to axis center. So Shift C, axis center. I want to move the anchor point down to the bottom. Say execute. No, it's not going to do it while it's a procedural object. Let's just do it ourselves. So we'll come here and grab the anchor point. Or maybe because I was in anchor point mode, that should work. There we go. Include children and use all objects in this case. Now, if we look at this, it is centered left to right and at the bottom of this object. And so we want to make sure that the anchor points of the individual parts are correct, and then also the anchor points of the entire thing is correct. So I need you to have include all children and use all objects for axis center. We're going to use axis center a bunch. So I'm going to take it and dock it here so that it's easily accessible. Great. And now I can take this and let's zero it out. Not. And now it's better. We're sort of rebuilding this. Great. And let's round the edges on it. And so the edge rounding here under the extrude, under the caps, this is where we can control the rounding. So that, much better. The geometry along the sides of it, turn the other things off. I'm going to make a, I want to set this up so that I'm on the 0. And so I'm going to readjust my reference as well. I'm going to go Shift V to get to the back, and then offset this. So when you build things that are supposed to sit on the ground, you want to build them sitting on the ground. That's just best case building. So now I can put that back to go right about there. Yeah. Let's see. That's fine for now. This might be a separate part later, but we'll work in stages. And then the geometry along the side, you want to be consistent. Let's leave it for now. We've done some, so we'll have that. We've got some rounding there. That's good. Let's bring the base up where it should be now. Base. And again, we have an anchor point problem here. So with the base, one spline is the base. That's good. Let's go ahead and center that. So execute. Good. Now that's right in place. And move this up to where it should go there. And these corners are rounded. Let's look at that. Point mode. Good. Those corners are chamfered. Although you see it needs to be a little bit more exact than that. I'm going to redraw this spline. Spline pen, point, 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 close, go. And I'm going to chamfer these corners. Actually, before that, I'm going to line them up. So with things that are supposed to be geometrically aligned, I'm going to grab these two. And a real good trick here is in T, hold down Shift, and scale those points so that they're perfectly aligned with each other. Same thing here. Select here, and see that there is a little bit of difference. Hit T, hold down Shift, 0. Now that's completely lined up. Cool. So now let's go ahead and see that this bottom edge should probably be rounded more than the top edge. I'm going to grab these bottom ones, right click and say chamfer, and then round those. And then grab this one, and right click and say chamfer, and round those a little bit less. There we go. And put this inside that. Yeah. And let's run that axis center again. Get it where we want. E. Probably be a little bit bigger. I'm going to scale the spline. C. E. There we go. And let's run that. See, the anchor point isn't aligned because we did the thing. There we go. Cool, that's better. Getting this sorted out. Great. And now, for the base, spline, make sure that this is zeroed out. And this one more time. Middle. At the bottom. Great. Now let's zero this out. There's a button for zeroing out. Shift C. Shift C, reset. PSR. Position, scale, rotation. And drag that up here because I'm going to use that a bunch. Set PS. See if I move it somewhere else. Boom. Back to. Go. Better. Look at that from the side. I think our reference is a little bit off. Just that. Shift V. There we go. This is the what we're calling this stand. Bring that down. Maybe a little bit through. Cool. Now, great. Anchor point centered. Anchor point centered. Base. These two are getting worked out here. And I'm going to make a null. This is a good thing when I'm working. I'm going to turn it off in view and render and call it hider. So that now stuff that I haven't quite worked out yet, I'll throw in there so that it kind of focus on what I need. Set up and grab the base and let's round the edges on the base. I'm going to go ahead and go to caps. Round. So we have a limit to, since we have the fillet rounding over here, we don't want to go past this where these start to get all merged together. Probably right about there, around those. Cool. All right, that's better. Now let's take another part and get it fixed up. Let's look at the bowl. There's a thing before the bowl. Yeah, this does look like a stand of some kind for the bowl to sit on. So in this case, to get that shape, let's go ahead and plate. Let's be a little bit more accurate about this shape. More of this kind of thing. Let's see. We could do that with a lathe or a loft. Let's do it with a loft. So I'm going to go ahead and create a circle. Make sure it's on the XZ plane. Bring this up to right about there, middle, there, and then adjust the radius down about the right size there. And then I'm going to control drag it down. Get two of them. Go on that. And then adjust this radius a little bit. So there we go. And now if I put both of those objects in a loft, I get that rounded. It needs to be rounder, so I'm going to go ahead and loft and increase those subdivisions. Smooth. Under the caps rounding, you see that this starts to round there. We can do that a different way. Let's leave that as it is for now. And let's get this anchor point fixed. Here, in the middle, bottom. Great. Now, put this to go here. So it's not exactly lining up, but you know, I'm getting the proportions I want. Cool. Let's bring the bowl in. So this we'll call plate. Go. And bowl. Used a lathe, which is the right move here. Anchor point's not correct, so let's go ahead and execute that. Puts it pretty much. That's better. And this looks pretty good. I might scale this just a tiny bit. T down slightly. Like this. Cool, that looks pretty good. The line here, let's go ahead and look at that a little bit. And so the round, yeah, the part of the reason we're not rounded here is that I want to round some of these edges. So another way to round some of the edges, instead of chamfering, if we just right click this and say soft, it gives us a Bezier handle. And so like these, they should really be soft. So that'll round out the bowl much better. And you do want to make the inside so that if we render from the inside, it looks like the bowl is there. So in this case, let's go ahead and do that. To extend this. And in fact, we may just redraw it. So it's going to center around there. I'm going to come in here with the pen tool. Click. Click. Yeah. So a lot of times you're doing better than trying to fix. There we go. Pretty good. Oh, I had this line selected when I made it, and so it actually combined them into one thing. If that happens, ideally you want to unselect. So you see that there's like this line that was originally there, and then the one I just drew. And so I can select here and just say, I think it's UW. There we go. Select connected. So these are all the ones that are connected to that old spline. Delete those. Cool. Now with this new spline, let's look at the anchor point for correctly lined up. That actually wants to be all the way over here. that's actually in the Z, because I want to line it up right at the bottom here. That over, go. Now, I take the line back on. There we go. Now our bowl has a center. There's some weirdness happening here, but we'll clean that up. And so, for instance, you can see if I made it a different color just for the sake of seeing. The bowl has bottom, or it did not that. Cool. All right, so now grab this and let's round this out a little bit. So again, coming back to the full edge, let's turn this off. We can control the rounding with the spline. So this one, grab point mode, grab this one, this one, this one, this one. Turn all those into softer, better. And same thing with here and here to round out the edge of the bowl. So, and this needs to be lined up exactly z equals 0. Should be at z. And on here, I'm gonna go ahead and say soft interpolation here. That's looking better. And let's just get this middle part worked out. So here, with this spline, I'm going to move it back to the middle of the world, and then put a lathe object in it so that I know the spline is lined up to the middle of the world, and the lathe object. So now, let's get rid of some of our center issues, because now it's exactly like. Cool. And let's give it a few more rotation subdivisions. And we don't need quite as many subdivisions up here on the lip. I'm going to go to the spline and just up this, sort of decrease that density, but still go. Very nice. Now, still like we need. Cool. All right. Now, let's go ahead and we're doing much better here as far as rounding goes. Got these rounded corners. If I were to save this, it has an image in it, so I'm going to go save project as. Or sorry, save project with assets, because we want the image to come. Project with assets. Folder. Let's say folder. Mixer. And now it will save it with the mixer it needs right there. So that's looking better, and we're getting the rounding on the edge much better. Let's get the other stuff in here. So this will be the bowl. Plate. base, stand. So these I'm going to start putting together. Every model that you make, you want it to be each thing down to one up here. One null grouping everything together. And make a null at 0, 0. Mixer. And start putting my things. Let's see, is my mixer anchor point in the right place? Yes, that's where I would want it to be. And so here, here, those in there, here, here. Great. Now I can start assembling some of it. Let's see the other parts. Oh yeah, so the let's make this transparent. Double click and make one with some transparency. Not 100% transparent brightness. Turn it down a little bit. Put that on the bowl. I can see through as I'm working, looking at stuff. Because we got this part here. And a lot of you guys did use the cloner correctly, but we've got to round these parts a little bit better. And so let's do that. This looks good. The risk. So yeah, it is the cloner. That looks better. But if we look at this, this is not bad, but probably want these going in the other direction, and we want the corners rounded. So let's go ahead and do that. Another disk part. So let's say line pen tool, and go click. Let's say here, here, to and I want these to line up exactly here. So in point mode, turn the bowl off. I'm going to do that trick with T and hold down Shift, go to 0, go, and go here, here, and T, Shift that out. Now here, here, T. We're going to chamfer these edges. That, round. E, over a bit, like so. So we get rounded, rounded. Let's get these lined up. Come straight out. T. And grab these two. T. Shift. Over a little bit. We're actually doing both at the same time. That's good. So that shape is pretty good. Now we want to sweep that with the rectangle. Rectangle, and make it small, just like maybe 4 by 4, and then make a sweep. Both of these. And let's see. This looks okay. The rectangle is probably in the wrong plane. Not that one. There we go. That's what we want. So now let's go ahead and adjust this so it's a little fatter in this direction than this direction. That's kind of what we're looking for. And then we want to round these corners as well. And so we can do that by rounding the rectangle. So there's a rounding parameter right there. So if we dial that down, say 0.3, there we go. That gives us a little bit more, 0.5, like that. Cool. And now we want the anchor point for this object, this sweep, kind of at the bottom, or let's say at the top, but over here. So the top is going to be the whole way over here. And then all the way over on this side will be the Z. Want it in the middle of the X. There we go. So using this anchor point, super handy. Great. And now we can turn that around with either the cloner, the array also does it, like the I get it in the bottle assignment. And so if I get the Oh, is the array not in here anymore? Just go Shift C. Put this in here. There we want 4 copies and 0 radius. There we go. That's better. And now we can move this here. Oh yeah, right. So the first one counts as a copy, and so we only need 3. Nice. So now that's rounded. That looks better. Cool. So really taking care of the rounding, taking care of the placement, and this object here, to get that part looking better, let's use a lathe for that. And so I'm going to go ahead and, again, spline pen tool, make sure nothing is selected over here, and let's say here, 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 here. And now, if we were to put this in a lathe, see that it does it the whole way over there because it rotates around the lathe's 0, 0 point. So we need to move the lathe to where. So let's put this, the dead center middle is right here with the spline. And so if I want to line this up directly with that, I can turn on snapping and then get to that. Now if we put this in there, it goes around that point. Cool. That's looking better. Let's round some of these points that we need to. Off. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and say soft. And now Shift, I have to be in Move Tool, E, and then Shift will allow me to dial in the Bezier points separately. Super handy. Same thing here. So grab this one. Should probably be Bezier handles. Go. Now E for Move Tool and Shift. Here. Now down at the bottom. Over here. Oops. Same thing. Got to be in the Select tool to right click. Soft. And then E for Move Tool. And holding down Shift. Turn off the snapping. Cool, let's turn that back on and see what that looks like. Nice. Cool. And let's start making this look a little bit more fun. I'm going to save incremental so that if something happens to this, I can go back to a previous version. Go, save incremental. And I'm going to turn on my autosave. Edit, preferences. Oh, there it is. And under File, I'm going to say turn autosave on, project directory. That's not on. Cool, that's much better. And let's make this look a little more fun. And so both of these objects are one thing. If they animate, they should animate together. And so I'm going to group them together. So this is the, we'll say Pbr, how about Pbr frame? This is the, and group these two. Alt G, here we go. And this will be the meter. And now we want to make sure that we put the anchor point probably up here. So that's at the top, but we want to be in the middle. There, execute. That puts it top. Cool, that works. It's in there. That. Nice. That's coming together better. And now let's make this look a little bit nicer. So if you downloaded all your content browser stuff, there's some materials we can use here. Let's come over and look. Iron. So if I just look for like plastic, let's see. I'm gonna go with this glossy, and let's look for like a metal. Like that. Try this one. Nope. Cool. And now let's go ahead and make a Pbr light. It's up, rotate it a little bit. T, make this bigger. E, sort of. Go. And yeah, so maybe let's say the metal is on here. Good, and plastic on the other parts. That's better. This will probably be a different color, so I'm going to control drag this to get a separate one. And let's say that this one is like a gray. And I'll put that on like plate part. Cool. That's pretty much better. And where's the bowl? Delete it? Nope, I didn't delete it. Oh no, it's right, it's just off. And so we do need a glass. Or glass. No. Bowl. Looking better. Save. Nice. All right, so I'm rounding points. I'm getting all of this worked out. Let's look at the bottom here. And what else do we have? So there's this business, and the top of it, handle. So the handle, for instance, that's something we can probably dial back in. So here's the handle. Let's get that out. And look at that. Cool, so the shape's pretty good. Let's get it dialed in a little bit. We need rounding, and we need to get the anchor point. So anchor point, anchor point, anchor point, right? So in this case, we want it at the bottom. So that and execute. It's not really what we want, probably the middle here. And so on the Z here, execute, there we go. That puts it about where we need it. Now we want to round the corners. So I'm gonna go to caps and round a little bit there, just enough so that it's in there. This geometry should be a little bit smoother. So if we go to the spline, if we're in an adapted mode, we can dial that in. Probably just some rounding we need to do here with the spline. And so for instance, these points over here, the blue to white tells you where it starts and ends. And so this is the beginning point of the spline. And so this point here needs to be rounded for sure. Let's grab this one and soft interpolation. Better. In fact, let's say all these points here should be smoothed out. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these and grab these points. All these to soft interpolation. Better. And then this point here, this doesn't need to come to a point, it needs to be rounded. And so this one and this one should be chamfered. So let's say here, that a little bit. So that looks better. There we go. Smoother. Nice. And let's go ahead, and the anchor point on this is better now. If I come back to mode and hit E, go. About where it needs to be. That looks better. Middle. Cool. that into the mixer. And let's go ahead and grab, go look for plastic again. I think there's like a handle plastic, like ABS plastic. Yeah, here's a rougher plastic. Go with this one. Bring it in. Save. See, you're coming together. We're gonna need the same kind of thing for over here. So let's go ahead and look at these parts. Yeah, so we got the cable, middle part, and here. And so let's do this one. There's some options here, but I think let's try a, let's spin this. Let's try a lathe. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, to my line pen, say, is there a thing there? Yeah, let's say let's put a thing there. But let's bring this in. And yeah, the easier it is with less points. So I'm just going to stop there, just those two, and then grab both of these points and say a Bezier handle. Actually, make 2 points there. That's something to, sometimes things don't react like you would think because we're close. Let's add a point here. We can come in, if we hold down Control, if we're in the Move tool, we can add a point. And then make this one Bezier handles. And E, move it over to like here. E for the handles. Drag these out. And we probably want another point here actually to keep these two straight. And so E, and then let's straighten these out. Use that trick. T, hold down Shift. Sorry. Start scaling this way, hold down Shift. Figure out that those are straight. Nice. And then here, E, or actually selection tool. Why are we not getting a handle there? There we go. E. Cool. Now we want to spin this around, but we don't want to spin around. It needs to line up with that point right there. And so I'm going to make a lathe. And let's go ahead and rotate it this way, exactly 90 degrees, holding down Shift. Hold down E and turn snapping back on. We can line it up exactly where it needs to go. Right there, snapping to that spline object. And so now if I put this in, there we go, rotates around there. That looks better. Nice. Cool, so that's circular. Let's go with that for now. And this will be the, I don't know, cone. We'll call this body and then cone. Spell body correctly. Great. And so let's look at some of these parts. If I want to see through it over here, selecting the object, I can go to Basic, X-ray. Now I can see through, see what we need. Great. So this is one of those instances where we're going to use this object to get started, and then do some polygon modeling to create these two insets. So let's go ahead and we got it. We got one there where we need. And that looks pretty close. So now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to hit C to go into a polygon object. And now I can come in here UL for loop selection. Let's grab this one. And let's go ahead and go to edge mode, actually, UL. And I am going to hit MS for bevel. Excuse me. And drag that out. And then in polygon mode, to UL. Right here. And hold on. I'm going to grab all these. And it's blue. That's not good. Because the normal's in the wrong direction. What is the normal? every polygon is only meant to face one direction. Everything needs thickness. And so you want the outside of your models, once they're polygon objects, to be yellow, not blue. So this one is inside out. How do I fix it? I can select them all and go to reverse normals. There we go. That's correct. So now if I go to UL, loop selection, grab this one, I can D, extrude this in, create that little bit of a lip it needs right there. That's not bad. Do the same for the other one. That one, I'm going to hit UL, loop selection, edge mode, one right here. And then same process. Let's hit MS for bevel, pull that out, then go back to UL in polygon mode, grab that, and D, extrude in, just a little bit, create those two parts. And we want to texture this differently. So I'm going to go to UL and grab this part right here. And, oh, not there. Right there. There we go. And so I have those two selected. And so the stuff in between here, we want to texture separately. And so here's a really good shortcut. UF is fill selection. And so if it can find, with the fill section, it will fill between there and there. So I hold down Shift, and now I want that part to be black. I'll put the black on there. And then UI to invert, and I want that part to be the green. Or actually, let's make that part chrome. So now it's created selections for both of those by dragging those on there when those polygons were selected. So now, see what that looks like. Turn off the X-ray. There we go. That's looking better. Let's turn the X-ray back on so we can see those other parts we need to make. The lathe, and here's these cuts. Cut into it. Sort of a more complicated thing there. Let's just go with those ones going around for now. They could be cubes. I'm going to move this into position here and kind of just line it up and snap a second and get this about the right size. All right, so we're going to use a Boolean here, but let's get this there, pretty thin, down. Move this about to the middle of one of those cuts. That and T. Oh, we don't want to keyframe that. A little bit of depth there and a little further out. Cool, that works. That's about where we need it. Let's move it over this way. Cut into this. I kind of want to cut that. Cool. And so now if we were to Boolean these objects, we could cut into it. And let's do that. We need to duplicate them. We could do that with let's do it with a cloner. So I'm going to make a cloner. Move it out there. There. Cube inside. And put the cloner into radial mode. And we got to switch the plane. There we go. Let's fix this cube. So we want the anchor point of this cube to actually be here. I'm going to hit C on this cube. Go to anchor point mode first. Move this over right about there. Again, only in one dimension. Back in. Better. There we go. And so under transform here, be able to rotate this. There we go. Yeah, so start angle, we only want half. So the end angle can be 180. And if we have more of them, go. And let's be a little more precise. This should really be -90 and -90 under the transform on the cloner. Okay, not the coordinates, but the transform. This is what happens to each clone. Now here with the cloner, let's go ahead and rotate it this way. Exactly. There we go. And then you need to come in. So the radius under object, bring them in so they're intersecting. There we go. Now we can subtract this from this. So I'm going to make the Boolean object over here and put the clone in it and the cloner. And let's see. Does a pretty good job. We've cut into that at each part. We want the internal geometry. Let's see. Sometimes if you increase the amount of geometry on the objects coming through, not getting the walls. Let's quality, create single A, subtract B. Let's see if we make our cloner one object. I'm going to hit C, cloner, and then I'm going to take all these objects and say connect objects. Now let's see if we get some. It's better. Let's see. Not getting those. Side. I'm going to subdivide this object. So Control A, divide. I think if this was filled in, and so let's go ahead and say connect polygon hole here. So I'm going to make sure the cone is selected and go to, right click and say close polygon hole. We'll do that there. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's what it needs. See, now it knows there's an inside. So now it has those cutouts, their internal geometry. So you didn't need to connect this. Now it's got the nice. Good. Cool. All right, that's looking better. Go ahead and pick it up there.